Welcome to Yoga Teacher in Progress. Hi, my name is Rada, and this is the podcast about everything that happens after your yoga teacher training. Because becoming a yoga teacher doesn't end with a certification, it starts with it. So here we are for episode 2 and the first one that is a solo episode. And I'm a bit nervous about it because it's a very personal one. I've never shared it with a bigger group. I haven't talked about it online, but it's something that's been brewing for the past 3+ months now. I stopped teaching yoga full time. I said it. It's out there now. I stopped. It makes it real sometimes, somehow. Almost 3 beautiful years of growth, of sharing, giving, but also, receiving. Many beautiful, encounters, many beautiful opportunities. There are really people that I love seeing week after week for the past years. And thanks to those yoginis, it doesn't feel like, going to work. And I had beautiful testimonials, so to say, or, unexpected feedbacks and gestures. For example, at the very beginning of my journey, one yogini gave me a card, and I still have it there on my desk. And she said, whatever happens, on your path, never stop teaching. And me stopping full time doesn't mean quitting. It's just a different way of teaching. I had also another person sending me a picture of her baby on social media and thanking me for the practice which she believed helped us birth her child. And those feedbacks are just little treasures that I put inside my heart. Because, I've been, always full time, into the corporate world, being an employee, mostly in the digital space. So there is nothing tangible. You're always late on your deadlines. You're always, behind on your tasks. And I was always full speed, full time, full, giving everything outwards. And I never really created something of my own. So sometimes, and I have to admit it, I'm a bit like 1 and zeros, black or white. I do things, like the opposites, you might say, but always full time, entirely. So I was an employee full time, and I started teaching yoga, and I had this deep sensation, feeling in my gut that I wanted to give it a try. I wanted to experience what it means to be a full-time teacher. It would also be the first time that I'm an entrepreneur, solopreneur, and I wasn't in an environment where there would be many of them, neither in my friend circles, neither in my family. My parents are immigrants. They've been here in Switzerland now for 40 years, but, they flew one country to find financial security in another. They would be proud to say I worked X years in that company full time. So being a first timer in your family is never easy, but I felt the call to try it. And so that's why I will never regret that. And who knows, I'm not closing the door. Maybe I will do it again. That was the right path for the version of me of 3 years ago. And deciding it's not the right one for me for that version of myself now is also fine. And you might be thinking, if it was so perfect, if it was so fulfilling, why stop? Why stop? Well, I did it for Grandma Rada the version of myself. I call her like that. Because, yeah, I've been financially independent since I'm 15-year-old, in something that grew out of necessity first, but that also became a core value of mine. Maybe over independence, but that's another topic. But yeah, that was something I'm deeply proud of. I've always been financially independent, or the most part of my life. And I started in the past year to think more and more about Grandma Radha. And somehow I wondered, will she be counting pennies, when I will turn 65 or more by the time? Or, yeah. Will she be allowed to afford a coffee? Because now I can, I can still do the things that I was doing when I was an employee. But the difference is I can't contribute yet to my pension fund. And that's how it works in Switzerland, There is a part of your salary when you're employed that is taken away and put in your pension fund. And when you're independent, you have to do that yourself. And yeah, it's been 3 years and I don't earn enough to do that. So you might be thinking, okay, fair point. Is that it? There is also another thing. So it's, of course, for Grandma Radha that I'm doing this. But it was also because the more I was thinking about her, I realized I was also thinking something that I'm sure many teachers think but don't say out loud, because we actually feel bad about it, or just we feel bad thinking it. But, when we start, we teach group classes in studios, in weekly, settings. There are not so many, privates that, you would get when you start teaching. That's the entry point. Either you teach your friends and family, or you start in a yoga studio, maybe both in parallel. And so, also most of the time, your paid, or your payment, depends on the number of participants. And I'm sure you see where this is going. If your payment is related to the number of participants, what happens when there is only one, so to say, showing up? And it's terrible to think that, because as teachers, having one person giving you their trust, to lead them through their practice is something amazing. But when there is this financial component attached to it, yes, we do think, only one, especially on the days we're tired. And then we feel bad about it. And I'm not teaching yoga to feel bad before, during, or after. That's not the point. And I hear some of you also think, like homo economicus, like, well, in that case, why don't you teach more privates? Why don't you do more corporate and workshops and etc., etc.? Well, I would love to, for sure, but it doesn't happen overnight. There are also Instagram accounts that are growing because maybe it worked for them and that's what they're sharing. You can start teaching and already start with privates. But that's maybe, or not maybe, that's the minority, at least in my circle, and I've never experienced anyone who started their teaching path with only corporates and retreats and privates. It's something you build with time. And this path requires patience, resilience, something I've never been really good at, but I'm trying to cure myself. And that's why I thought this is an important step in my journey, being a full-time teacher. But the more time passed, the more I got amazing opportunities. That's true, and they keep on coming. But it's not instant. And with time, again, I thought about Grandma Radha more and more and more. And the more I thought about it, the more I lost a bit of peace. And I have a loving partner, and I wouldn't be on the street for sure. But I realized it's still something that bothers me. I want to contribute just as much as he contributes. And also something that's important mentioning, because on that path, or in that 3-year period, I had so many people, not only yoga teachers, but also other people, that maybe are in the same phase of their life, would contact me and ask, so, hey, how is it to be independent? I've always been an employee. And also they tell me a lot like, oh, because, once I quit, for sure I never go back. And that's something I've never said. I didn't want to put that pressure on myself, because when we already have so much anxiety and stress, like taking the leap. But if on top of that, you tell yourself, I'm never gonna do this again, or never go back, or only do whatever I decided to do now, that would be so much pressure for me. And that's why I said, that's something I would never say. I always left the doors open. And that's why, for that version, 2026 of me, I realized I need the financial stability for many reasons that I won't, mention now. And so that's why it's been 3 months that I'm leading what people call a portfolio career. If you don't know what it is, don't worry. A year ago, I didn't know neither. I was already, thinking about that, and, the power of thoughts. A few weeks later, I had an ex-colleague of mine that announced me they were expecting a baby, and if I would cover the parental leave. And I saw it as a perfect opportunity because it would be part-time. And, I learned a lot also. It was like a trial period. I loved it, just trying and see if that works for you. And definitely I made a lot of mistakes as well when I did that. Not at work, but just in the way I was organizing my life. During those 5 months, I will for sure share it more in depth at some point later, maybe next year. But it brought me so much to have, that financial cushion, so to say. And I realized that it brought me that, feeling of security that I needed. And in that time, I wasn't thinking, oh, there is only one person showing up to practice, meaning, oh, I will not be paid a lot. Because my financial needs were covered, I would just show up with the same thoughts and intentions, be it one person or 10 or 15. And that's why when those 5 months, stopped, I thought maybe that's what I need right now. Maybe it was too soon, to go full time, but I don't think so. I learned a lot. And now I also feel grateful for, being back in corporate or as an employee, and also stay as a teacher. And I won't say now, like the key takeaways or, things to look for or watch for, because I just started that portfolio career. And yeah, going back to what portfolio career means, isn't it the same or a glorified name for part-time? Well, no. I'm not an expert, but shortly put, a portfolio career means that you're having several careers in parallel. And part-time is you have one career and you don't dedicate 100% of your working time to it. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. Being a parent is even more than full-time. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that here, I'm just as much a yoga teacher as I am a digital project manager. And I want to do both equally good. I invest a lot of time in both. And maybe one advice I got, so maybe, okay, I'm giving you an advice, but it's not mine, it's something I got and helped me, is that you can't give 100% of your focus to both. That you have to figure out in the seasons, or both, or maybe do 3 things. You'll have to focus or decide where your focus is for a certain period of time. You do different things, but maybe there is the major is, career A, and career B or C, you could do it good, but it's not the focus. And then at some point, maybe it changes, career B and or C has more focus, but you just do, equally good career A. I hope it makes sense. At least it does for me. It doesn't mean that I'm saying one path is better than the other. Maybe with this podcast episode, I just want to say, allow yourself to stay open. Try one thing, pivot, do things again and again, change, try, fail, whatever failing means to you. We're allowed to change our paths, change our minds. It's part of growth anyway. And yeah, having said that, you might be thinking at this point, okay, I thought Yoga Teacher in Progress is for new yoga teachers, between graduations and first teachings, and you're talking about stopping teaching full time. What's in it for me, basically? Well, I wanted to share it because maybe you're already thinking about, your big picture is going full time, or maybe you're scared of it. Maybe you're already in it as well and wondering, did I make a mistake? And you don't, allow yourself to share that thought with anyone or say it out loud. Maybe full time was never your plan and you wonder if that makes you less of a teacher. It doesn't. There is no right way to build your career, your yoga teaching path. Allow yourself to try. It won't be perfect, whichever path you choose. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And also very important, you don't owe anyone an explanation. Why you do this, why you do that, why you changed again, why you went back. It doesn't matter, except yourself. And even that can change, and that's totally fine. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think the best is to try, I don't think you'll have regrets trying. You'll have regrets thinking, what if? And yeah, maybe that's what being in progress means to me. And that's what brings you to reflect about it. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening to episode 2. If you know anyone that it would resonate with, and it doesn't even have to be a yoga teacher, share the link. And yeah, if you feel extra generous, maybe you leave a review or, just like this episode. Take care and be well.